A new era has arrived in Broncos Country, and with it, a new approach to sports ownership is beginning as well.
That makes it so official.
It does.
If you could talk a little bit about your passion for football.
Well, just to open up the conversation today, I want to go back to your childhood.
Join us as we introduce you to the amazing women who compete, triumph, and lead throughout the world of sports.
Ooh, I love this.
It's just a conversation.
All right. Good. Well, thank you for making me feel comfortable.
We were lucky enough to sit down with some of the most influential women in Colorado to find out how their success and determination help inspire the next generation of young women in Broncos Country. The sale of the Denver Broncos in 2022 marked a historic moment in the world of professional sports. With the inclusion of Carrie Walton Penner, Dr. Condoleezza Rice, and Mellody Hobson as owners of the franchise, a powerful example was set for women everywhere.
The NFL is really wanting to make sure that there is broader diversity at all levels of the NFL, which is really important, whether it's at the league office, coaching, in the executive offices, and in ownership.
I never want to be in an organization where everybody thinks alike, where everybody's had the same experiences.
I think we're a unique group working together, and I think we set the tone for what the modern ownership looks like.
We're so fortunate to be able to have brought together people who are so excellent across really diverse fields.
I believe that we will lead in increasingly important and crucial roles in our organization, but also in the league as a whole.
They are beyond powerful. They are role models really in every walk of life.
I think the solutions that they can bring to the table can be extremely innovative.
When you have strong female leadership that's invited to the table, it changes the dynamics in the culture.
They're going to surprise the NFL. They really are, because women, when you get together with more than one of us, the world is going to be changed.
You know, we have this connection, and this connection is around an American pastime, and it's a connection around something that brings people so much joy.
3 hours on a Sunday, it gives people relief. It's one of the few things that brings us together as a country and in our community right now across all kinds of differences. And there's something that's really special in that, and something that's really important to make sure we use that unique ability for good.
My earliest dreams were really simple, and they were modest. I wanted to know where I was gonna sleep. I wanted to know that I'd have food and that I would have some kind of financial security.
My dream as a little girl was to be a great concert pianist. I started playing piano at the age of 3. I could read music before I could read. There was no doubt in my mind I was going to be a concert pianist.
I want to be a corporate lawyer. That was my plan when I was young and growing up. I thought corporate law. That's what my dad did, and there's a methodical way to think about things, and that is how my mind works.
After my sophomore year in college, where I was a piano performance major, I realized that I was good, but not quite good enough. And I had that little talk with myself. Do you want to keep trying to pursue this, or is there something else out there for you? I wandered into a class in international politics, and I knew that's what it was.
I was the youngest of 6 kids in my family. I had these older siblings. I had a single mom. She struggled to make ends meet, and so that meant that sometimes we'd get evicted, or our phone would get disconnected, or our lights turned off, and car repossessed, all of those things. I don't think it's an accident I work in the financial services industry, because as a child I was really desperate to understand money.
When I was leaving for college, my granddad said you have to work. My grandmother said you have to give back. And so I did both. I was volunteering for kids who were on probation in Washington, D.C., seeing these young people who did not have opportunity, and they were within 6 months of my age, so they were my peers, and they were good kids. I think that was the turning point for me in realizing that the American dream wasn't available to everyone, and that really is what shifted my focus into education and education access.
You had to know my parents, who were just extraordinary people, and they really did teach me that I could be anything that I wanted to be. And this was in circumstances that were not so easy because it was segregated Birmingham, Alabama. You couldn't go to a movie theater or to a restaurant. And they had me believing I could be president of the United States if I wanted to be. They would say you have to be twice as good, which meant work twice as hard and then you'll be twice as confident. They said there are no victims. If you think of yourself as a victim, you've given control of your life to someone else. You may not control your circumstances, you can control your response to your circumstances.
I think the early challenges made me the person that I am, gave me the ingredients to persevere and to make the sacrifices I needed to make along the way in order to get to the bigger goals.
For the women in the Denver Broncos ownership group, running an NFL franchise is a new frontier in their professional careers. They each bring a diverse set of experiences, skills, and perspectives that will drive the Broncos towards success. For Carrie Walton Penner and Dr. Condoleezza Rice, owning the Denver Broncos came with an added sense of pride and responsibility as both women witnessed the passion of Broncos Country from an early age.
I went to elementary school and junior high in Boulder, being literally across the street from the mountains and trails, and it was a whole different way of living. So we fully embraced it. The outdoors lifestyle, the activity, and the Buffs and the Broncos. And this was late 70s, early 80s. So for the Broncos, it really was in the middle of Orange Crush.
They'd been kind of the doormat in the NFL for a long time. And then all of a sudden that team in 1977, we were really good and we were winning Sunday after Sunday. The city was just a buzz.
That's really what was such a core memory for me around the Broncos. My brother still has t-shirts from when we were young.
I know we had other Super Bowls. We had the John Elway years and, of course, Peyton Manning, those times when the Broncos were everything the city wanted them to be. And so I really look forward to getting back there.
You can't live and be born in Colorado without being a fan of the Broncos. I think when they stamp your foot on the birth certificate, you sign something that says that.
I first became passionate about sports at a very young age, and it was surrounding, honestly, the Denver Broncos, and growing up seeing them on my television set every Sunday and watching with my dad.
I had 4 older brothers, and so that was always kind of, from a young age, a passion of mine, and I used to go to Broncos games with my dad. I was one of the boys.
Growing up in Denver, you realize this city lives and dies with the Broncos.
Denver is unbelievable as a fan base. This is Broncos Country, and it is wide and broad.
The Denver Broncos gained invaluable leadership experience when the Walton Penner family ownership group purchased the team. Each woman brings her successful background in community, service, business, and sports to the franchise. High expectations are the norm for the Denver Broncos, and 3 women owners will contribute to and elevate Broncos Country in their own unique ways.
Greg and I were talking about if there was something that would be really unique and unusual and kind of iconic to do as a family, what would that be? The only thing we came up with actually was the Denver Broncos.
I have to say, I never expected to be an NFL owner, but it is one of the great moments, the day that I realized I was going to be a Broncos owner.
I think of everyone in our partnership, she is the one who really was groomed for this role at the Broncos. She really is so well versed in everything as it relates to football.
I grew up with a father who was a football coach when I was born. From the time I was 6 or 7 years old, we watched football together on Sundays. He taught me the X's and O's of the game. I knew what a trap block was when I was 7 years old. Some of the happiest moments of my life and memories of my father were with my father in football, and so I learned to love the sport.
I read that she was potentially going to be a partial owner of the Broncos. You just go, wow. Like, what can't she do? Her intelligence and her sphere of knowledge, I just think her visibility resonates with many women in leadership roles.
I think one of my favorite moments with Dr. Rice was before she became an owner, and Peyton and Eli Manning had her on the Manning cast. And she was just spitting facts about football and obviously about her dad.
I've been fortunate. I had many chances to hire football coaches as the provost of Stanford. I had the chance to be on the college football playoff committee for 3 years. I've been close to this game and around this game as long as I can remember, really.
Dr. Rice, if you think about it, has reached the pinnacle in arguably the two most competitive fields in the world, politics and sports, and she has done it because of her knowledge for the subject matter.
She has been someone that I have admired for such a long time. For her to be on an international stage and to see what she was able to do is really remarkable.
You know, I joked with her the other day. I was like, well, basically you're a household name.
I remember when the Broncos announced their ownership group, and I was like, wait, that Mellody Hobson? Like business mogul Mellody Hobson? What an unbelievably accomplished woman who has done everything the right way.
I was approached about the opportunity to be an owner, and a lot of it, in terms of how I ultimately responded and what I decided to do, was through the lens of being first at that point. First in terms of being an African-American owner, and then certainly an African-American woman. And then I love competition of any kind. So the idea of the competition piece, you know, the mental toughness you have to have, not just the physical fitness, that became something for me that, and always has been something that I just find so fascinating.
She is unbelievably strategic. I feel like I'm able to learn so much from her. Very focused, very concise, incredible communicator.
When we have discussions with Damani about how the organization is running, she's just been there, and she has tremendous insights. She came out of a background where you would not have predicted that she was going to be who she is.
First of all, I think my background makes me an asset, because I remember when I met with the players, I said, I am you. Like, I know what it's like to be singularly focused on a goal. I know what it's like when you have your whole family and community counting on you. I said, I know what unique pressures you feel. And I think it really resonated with the room.
She spends a lot of time thinking about how do you mentor young people to come up within an organization.
We are partners with people on the field. I want to be very clear about that. We need each other in order to win.
This business is any business. At the end of the day, it's about people. And it's about how you make those connections, how you build trust.
Carrie brings an intensity and caring for not just the organization, but for the people in it. I have watched her take on the issues of development of the whole player. We forget how much our young players go through on a daily basis, and she wants to make sure that we're supporting them not just when they walk into this facility, but in their lives. But she also cares about the staff and the employees of this Denver Bronco organization. She's a real leader. We all follow her.
How do we position and be the best that we can be? Whether you're out on the field or sitting at a desk with spreadsheets, like your excellence that you bring to this every day allows all of us to be excellent. Because the Broncos hold such a special place in our community, it's really incumbent upon us to make sure that we are good citizens. As it relates to girls in particular, a lot of young women and girls still don't see themselves as being athletic. One role that I think we really lean into at the Broncos is making sure that across Colorado that we're opening up that access and the opportunity for girls to be able to play sports.
There's so many things that society tells girls you can't do. That's not for girls. You shouldn't do this. Dress like that. You know, there's so many rules. And I just feel that sports is that space where you can just be yourself.
My brothers and I were on ski teams, and I grew up playing soccer, so that was really kind of core from before coming to Colorado, but also through high school. I played soccer competitively. They were such formative years.
I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a hotbed for basketball. When I grew up, it was a hotbed for men's basketball only. It wasn't until high school that I had the chance to actually play on an organized basketball team. And that was due to the fact that I went to an all-girl Catholic high school. The public schools did not have any leagues. It was pre-Title IX. So I thought pretty much my basketball career would be over when I was a senior in high school.
Valuable life lessons are learned through training and competition on fields, courts, pools, and slopes. Regardless of gender, young athletes have always benefited from these lessons, but social norms limited the access that women had to sports until Title IX was passed in 1972. The bill prohibits gender-based discrimination in educational programs and has paved the way for the growth of women's sports in schools and colleges, opening the door for female athletes to compete at the highest levels.
What Title IX really did was give equitable access. Just give us a chance. And I don't know that before then, conversations centered around giving girls a chance.
Growing up, my mom put us in every activity imaginable, and softball really stuck with me. I just loved being part of something bigger than myself.
My dad took me to see Remember the Titans, the movie, at the movies when I was like 8. I was really impacted by how this group of young men could change a community through sports. So I fell in love with American football. It was amazing to me. And so a friend once told me like, hey, I want to invite you to play flag football. Tochito, we call it in Mexico.
I don't know if I ever quite realized that I have the proper, the pieces of the puzzle to be what I am today, to be a competitive ski racer, to be professional, to have done it for 13 years now. I just really loved it. That was the driving force. And every step of the way, I just felt like, I got here, maybe I can get to just the next level. So it was always just like one foot in front of the other.
I think I knew I had the temperament to be a professional athlete probably at a very young age, but I was not athletic. I was severe asthmatic, really couldn't do a lot of things, but I had that drive. So whenever I would play hide and seek with friends, I would make sure that I would be the winner.
Becoming a gold medalist was amazing. It had been 16 years since I started playing. I had been learning about relationships with women and teamwork, but I had never lived it in this way where it just transformed who I was.
Growing up, I kind of dabbled in everything, then I got really heavy into soccer and dance, which are almost kind of two polar opposites, and then you get to that point, as most kids do, where you got to make the decision, what am I going to do? And I picked dance from there.
I auditioned for the Denver Broncos cheerleaders, and I remember being at the parades as a kid, and I saw those cheerleaders perform, and I just thought they looked larger than life, and they represented what it was to be a leader in the community.
I played softball, I did all the things, track. I wanted to play soccer, but with the asthma, the running. Swimming was the one thing that I was with my friends doing what they were doing. I don't want you to think that I was great when I started. It took me 6 more years to finish 25 yards. 6 years. And to think that I held a world record in 50 and 100 meters.
What's not to like about being on a team? No, I mean, the camaraderie, the confidence you build, and from a young age, when you have the right coach, them teaching you to cheer each other on, to uplift each other.
It changed me in terms of giving me confidence, self-discipline, definitely becoming accountable for my mistakes, because every coach keeps athletes accountable for their mistakes.
Some of the things that I learned through sport was time management. You know, you go to school, you go to practice, you go to school, you go to practice, you've got homework and a social life you've got to fit in there. You also learn about how being patient is important, because if you have a goal, it doesn't come overnight. You have to be patient with that. It also teaches you how to be around other people. You're in a locker room with a lot of other different personalities, and you have to learn how to navigate that. So I really truly feel that getting young women into sport can help them, and it doesn't matter if they're the best or the worst. It will help them down the road, and that's really what's important.
It is such an incredible place to learn the spirit of competitiveness and camaraderie at the same time, and to be able to find the balance of putting yourself first and still lifting up those around you. That's such an important thing for women. You learn this amazing ability to compete and respect in the same sentence, basically.
We can work as a team and do incredible things with our differences. It's just so powerful to have relationships through sports.
I've always felt like what you learn in sports translates directly into life.
You can look at the data and the statistics when you talk to CEOs in Fortune 500 and C-suite. When those positions are open, they look for females that have participated in some type of athletic or activity because of the skill sets that you learn.
As long as you're willing to try, despite the chance that you might fail, get back up after you fall. And sometimes you fall and then you're kind of kicked while you're down. It might hurt, it might be public. You're going to experience that at some point in life, and you still need to get up and try again.
Sometimes our fear of taking the risk is because we don't want to fail. And yet, when you fail, you might find what it is that is your real direction.
Finding your way in life is challenging for all young people, and the path to success is often not a straight line. For young women who follow their dreams of working in a male-dominated industry, it requires an unwavering determination to pursue their passions.
One of the most important things I've done in my career is not to settle. I've been willing to take on really hard things. Yes, people looked at me when I walked into a meeting and was I in the wrong meeting because we were going to talk about military policy, and recognizing that it wouldn't be long before they knew I was in the right meeting. So I think some of the experiences that we've had in areas that where we weren't expected to be there or to succeed, now we can help translate those experiences to, all right, so maybe football's still at the place where when you walk in, they might think you're in the wrong meeting. You're not in the wrong meeting.
When I think about the individual organizations that I've been so fortunate to be a part of, Aerial First, the longest, it's 32 years now I've worked at one company. But that fundamentally shaped me as the person that I am, that experience from day one. I was encouraged, I was supported, I was taught. When I think about Starbucks and DreamWorks and JP Morgan, having been on the board of Estee Lauder as I was for so many years, these are world-class organizations. And I always was a little bit in a pinch myself mode when I was in those rooms saying how lucky I was to be there, and I still feel that way. And because I am there saying, earn the right. Earn the right to be here. Make sure you've done your work. Make sure you contribute constructively.
I had an interesting path into this job, into this television in the first place. And I never thought in my life, oh, I'd be making history in one sense or another. I was just trying to be a conduit from teams to fans and viewers. That was really my goal because of the passion I had for these Colorado teams, to be able to share that in a sense.
I started interning at a sports magazine, and they didn't offer internships at the time. And I just approached the editor at an event, and he's like, all right, come in, you're very persistent. And then the same thing happened at the Regional Sports Network. I got to edit tape. I learned how to run camera in studio, how to write up ticker, and I loved the people I worked with. It reminded me of being back on a softball team again, back on a dance team.
The Colorado High School Activities position for assistant commissioner opened. At the time, I was probably, I think, about 7 months pregnant, and everyone's saying, you got to go for this job. And in my mind, here we go again with the stereotypes. Oh, they're not going to want to hire a brand new mother. I went for it. First African-American woman in 100-year history in the nation to run a high school athletic and activities association. I think I'd even changed the culture of our office in terms of working mothers and trying to wear the many different hats, but yet wanting to be good at everything that you do.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't think that I could make a career out of sports, even though it was the thing that I loved the most. I didn't see a lot of examples of women doing it. But in this exploration of what am I gonna really do with my life, I tried out for the local TV, like our university's TV. You know, I came from an arts background, but I wanted to do sports. So they knew I liked American football. They did like this test where how much does this girl really know? And then they were like, okay, we want you to be an analyst. And I was like, what? An analyst? And the next year they were like, okay, now we want you to be a play-by-play. So I started kind of like growing. I go to college and I'm doing this, and I received this message from a woman that I knew, and she texted, women don't do play-by-play for American football. I could not believe it, honestly. So then also that was like, okay, there's something here to fix. There's a lack of women in Mexico doing this.
When I was in radio, I did an interview with Amy Trask, who was Al Davis's right-hand woman for a very long time, at a time when women were not in positions of power in the NFL. And I was very fixated on how can I be taken seriously, one, because I was at the very beginning of my career, and two, as a female, I felt like I had extra to prove. And I asked her about that, and she said, I never thought about my gender. And what I thought about was, if you're gonna waste your time thinking about my gender, that's your problem. I'm gonna spend my energy on doing my job well. And that changed everything for me.
Moving the needle for women in sports, yes, it's very important to me. I was on a national broadcast, Fox Sports Radio, and I was the only female voice on Fox Sports Radio at that time. It has always been something to me to not just get through that glass ceiling, but to explode that glass ceiling. And I truly think that it's important for all of these athletes that are coming up now to see that and to see where we have come. We've got women all over the place on TV now talking sports, football. That back in the day, that was unheard of.
It's a historic night for Major League Baseball. All 5 women on tonight's Orioles-Rays broadcast are women, and 2 of those 5 are from right here in Colorado. Alana Rizzo and Lauren Gardner are ready to celebrate this momentous occasion and then get down to business.
It was wild to see the snowball effect of media attention that we received when it was really just a matter of fact that we were literally just going to work to do our jobs, and oh, by the way, we're making history in the process. It wasn't like we were doing anything outside the norm of what we did on a daily basis. It was just the very fact that it was all women performing those jobs at the same time. And the fact that it took that long for something like that to happen was a little mind-boggling, if I'm being honest. I'm so grateful that I got to be part of, the first ever all-female broadcast. These young girls that couldn't be more than 9 years old said they want to do what I do. They didn't know it was possible until they saw me actually doing it, because up until that point, it was always men in that role. And it really hit me that this isn't just my passion and my dream. It's an honor, of course, but it's also a responsibility.
When the time came that I was offered to be the first female lead sports anchor in the Colorado market, I looked at it as an awesome responsibility. First of all, I couldn't believe that it was 2023 and this was a first, right? That's crazy when you talk about having a seat at the table. But the way I looked at it is the first, not the last, by any means. Hopefully somewhere, some young woman is saying, oh, well, that's possible. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do that faster than she did.
This girl who wants to be a head coach in the NFL, go and study how other people got to be head coaches. Not all of them played football. Some of them started as analysts breaking down tape. So find out what those pathways might be. Put yourself on that pathway. Keep insisting on getting a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more responsibility. Then maybe a position coach. And now maybe you're on the path to coordinator. Now you're on the path to head coach.
The popularity of women's professional sports has progressed in the last 2 decades, and while great strides have been made, there is still work to be done for equal representation throughout the industry.
Since 96, a lot has changed for women, and I have to say the 96 Games was called the Women's Olympics. That was where the WNBA was formed. That's where the women's soccer team, Mia Hamm, Brandi Chastain. I became the first American woman to win 4 Olympic gold medals in 1 Olympics, and it still has not been beaten yet. It has been tied. I will say the landscape is now very different. Women get a lot more respect on the field and in the pool.
Gosh, so many things have changed since I started coaching in 1977. But if I looked at 2023, the biggest changes, the influence of money, that influence and how it influences decision making at every level, head coach, assistant coach, down to the student athletes or professional athletes. Money is a driver.
I look at Miss Katie Ledecky in my own sport, and she is compensated as she should be compensated. And I think that's something that we worked for. Women have worked for that for so long. And I think in swimming, we're finally getting to that point. So hopefully the rest of the world will follow.
We're seeing it in so many ways. I mean, the Women's World Cup just finished in soccer, and there was so much enthusiasm for that. There was a fight for equal pay that ended up working out the right way. You're seeing the stats in other women's sports like the WNBA go up pretty dramatically in terms of viewership.
It has changed so much. You see stands packed at the CSU women's volleyball games. You see stands packed at WNBA games. You see it packed all over the place.
The biggest change I've seen with skiing and women in sports is sort of the level of competition. Just in general, seems like it's rising. I mean, if you take the Women's World Cup, I feel like there's an incredible level of competition there, and so much so that the whole world seems surprised that it's not sort of a walk in the park for our US women, although it never was, but sometimes it looks like that from the outside. That kind of is the same way I feel about skiing over the last 12, 13 years. I felt that the level of depth, the level of competitiveness, just the general level of skiing as well has elevated quite a lot.
Areas where we've seen women leaders become icons in their own way. Someone like Serena Williams, who, her brand extends so far beyond tennis.
We are all so different, and we come from different backgrounds, and we have different priorities, but we did have one, which was give it all for your teammate. It wasn't even the gold medal, it was give it all for the girl that's next to you. She might not be your best friend, but she's your teammate. They might root for another team, or they might have a different profession than me, but I started learning through my friends, through the coaches, through my relationships. That's when it all started coming together for me, where I'm like, okay, I really love this sport. Of course, you want to have more people involved and have a bigger relationship with the team, but also because there needs to exist a space for women to feel involved and know that they are part of something.
Women around the world have embraced the competition, strategy, and business of American football. Now more than ever, the opportunities for girls to experience all that football has to offer are springing up around the world.
One thing that we've done this fall is we're kicking off a research project with Children's Hospital Colorado, and they're researching the impacts and effects on mental health as well as physical activity for the girls who are participating in girls flag football in Colorado. So much research is always done around boys, and so this is the first time that there will be large-scale research like this, and that really shows the results for girls participating in sports.
Girls and women's flag football is so important to developing a female fan base. I think a lot of men had played the game at a certain time in their lives, so I think having played the game, you do have an understanding of it. So to be able to get out there and relate to football in a different way by actually physically being out there and playing and engaging just makes you more invested in your professional team and your market.
Flag football, the reason why I love the sport is because I've seen how girls that are super shy or that are insecure or that don't know how to be themselves in normal surroundings, once they're in a flag football field, they become themselves. That's when I've seen they're the most authentic selves. And I think there's so much value to that, because then that can be translated to the real lives. So then you see team workers, and you see bosses and amazing teachers and leaders, and it just transforms a whole community out of something that grows on a field, which is women finding themselves and their authentic selves.
I just think girls flag football is the best, because I remember growing up as a young girl and all I wanted to do was play football. All I wanted to do, and there were no opportunities. And so I loved soccer, I got into soccer, but I wanted nothing more. That was my dream, and that opportunity was not there in any fashion. So for young girls to have this opportunity to play the game, a game that teaches you so much about teamwork. I've always felt football is the ultimate team sport above all other sports. So the life lessons that they can learn from that and to get exposed to that football life is just so incredible, and incredible that the Broncos see the value in that and want to place that high value in that. And, again, that could lead to more coaching opportunities and more aspects in terms of the on-the-field opportunities for women, because now you have, in a sense, played the game where that opportunity just wasn't available before.
I think these are early days, but the world is not going to look back. I think you're going to look out a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, etc. All of these things will be very, very different.
It's been amazing to see how girls flag football has been embraced across the state of Colorado. And we really have committed to supporting any startup programs in the state for girls flag football, because it is something that there's a huge amount of desire for it. And so it's exciting to see that and to see it expanding in the way that it has.
With the leadership of the entire Walton Penner family ownership group, the Broncos are set up for long-term success. And we can also count on Carrie Walton Penner, Mellody Hobson, and Condoleezza Rice to continue to break down barriers and set a new standard for women everywhere, helping pave the path for the next generation of female sports leaders.
The strong female leadership within the new Denver Broncos ownership group, in my opinion, is going to be a game changer. These rooms are going to look and sound so much different than they ever have in years past.
The potential of this ownership group is limitless. It truly is. The way this group is constructed, there is so much knowledge, competency, accomplishments, and it feels like this group can elevate for the Broncos, for the state of Colorado, for the NFL, for the world, really.
Because your voice is so resounding, not only across the state, but I'm thinking with the 3 female owners, you're setting a precedent across the nation with NFL. It brings visibility to that representation that is critical in all areas.
Having more input, different opinions, people who come from different backgrounds, women, men, having a more diverse group of owners, I really hope that that does end up translate to winning, because you need the people closest to you or the people who you're doing that business with to be able to say, what about this? Maybe you never thought about that.
To me, that's such an exciting notion that we can have something within this organization that we've never seen before.
The product on the field is based on 7 days of a lot of hard work and teamwork and family and coordination amongst all the people in the organization, not just the quarterback, it's not just the running back, it's not just the head coach. Every single contribution is valued. That definitely starts at the top.
I don't think that the strong female leadership just translates to a winning culture on the field. I think it translates to opening up all possibilities in sports for women.
We have so much more to do, but we're getting there. And I think that's the important thing, is to make sure that as we think about the decisions that we are making, that young girls see themselves across a broad range of leadership roles.
I think we can, in order to help break down barriers to girls entering the sport and in all of its dimensions, is to really go back and think about how we might have turned out differently had those experiences been possible.
You know, we have not typically been owners. It's a very different role. And so now you'll have young girls and women thinking, well, that could be me, or there's a place on that team for me. I love sports, or I love football, or I want to be involved in some way. And they can see a path that maybe they didn't see before because we exist.
Women like us who have made it do have an obligation to make sure that we're not the last, and that means really helping to guide and to help young women see the amazing possibilities that are there now, helping and guiding. And so when I'm asked, somebody will send me an email and say, I heard you talk, and I'm always going to respond. And so I think that's our obligation, is to always respond.
There certainly have been women who have been breaking all kinds of ceilings that I've looked up to over a long period of time and during my life, and realizing that, gosh, you can do that. Like you can be there, you can do that.
All of us, women in leadership positions, serve as role models for people we don't even know.
I'm a great believer that mentors are the secret sauce of success in life. I've been very fortunate to have lots of them, and some who were really consequential in my life. Now, my mentors and my role models didn't look like me, because if I'd been waiting for a black female Soviet specialist role model, I'd still be waiting. And so sometimes you might be the first. There are two ways to think about it. First of all, you can talk to other women who have been first in other fields. A lot of it will translate. But you also can be mentored by people who do not look like you.
I'd say use those around you for support. Use the women around you, use the men around you, use the people you love, your support system, and really use them. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because you have to. In life, you have to ask for help. Everybody does.
You have to have mentors, both male and female, to prepare you for that. But part of your dream at a certain point because I can do that just as well as the person who's sitting there before me. Those are the things that person says, well, if she did it, I can do it.
My advice for any young woman looking to get into the sports industry, period, not just broadcasting, would be to, number one, be yourself.
What I tell young girls is, when someone tells you you can't do something, look at them and say, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? You don't know what's in my heart, you don't know what's in my soul, and you do not know what I am capable of.
My advice for the rest of the world, not the girls, is make sure they know there's a space for them and they belong. I think of my parents immediately, and my dad saying, like, if you love it, just try it. If you have fun, just try it. If this is a space where you feel this is your true self, just try it.
Think about your life, dream about your life. You don't know which path you're gonna take, which profession or what you're gonna do, but keep your options open and have a vision. It's gonna take a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice, but know that in the end, that sacrifice is gonna be worth it because you will have that fulfillment.
The advice that I would give to anyone at this point, young woman starting their career, I think of two things. I think of, don't worry yourself too much. You know, I think of all the times I was really worried, and it's a waste of time. And then the last thing I would say to a young person today is to ultimately do what makes you happy. I think so many times people do what is expected of them or what they're told or what they think they're supposed to be doing. If you are not happy, you will not be successful.
Embrace those risks and embrace going out and doing something that you really believe in. And you may fail, but you'll learn more so that you can go out and you can do more and you can go farther and you can break barriers that other people haven't seen broken.